Testing. All right, we're reading. Continuing part 17858. Specifications for DA welded steel cylinders aircraft use. Type and slab and surface pressure to top 4DA welded steel sphere. Two seamless hemispheres with a circumferential welded cylinder with two seamless withdrawn shells. Water capacity not over 1,100 pounds. Surface pressure release 500, but not over 900 psi gauge. Open heart with the electrical steel. Steel uniform quality must be the heat of the steel must be under the table of boil. The paragraph E of the chemical canals, which for the slightly over the specified of the range, if acceptable, if satisfactory in all of the respective provided with the tolerance shown in table 2, with the paragraph B, with the design C, with the accept the approve the associated administrator of the following chemical analysis are authorized. Table 1, authorized material: carbon, magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, silicon, chromium, molybdenum. Table 2, chemical analysis element, limited maximum specified percent tolerances in percent over the maximum under the minimum limitations. Carbon, magnesium, sulfur, phosphorus, and silicon, chromium, molybdenum. Identification material. Materials must be identified any suitable enough except for the plate for the bill of the hot drawn containers must be marked with a heat number of the manufacturer. Cylinders must be manufactured in accordance with the following requirements. By best appliances, that non-defective accessible, likely to weaken with the finished container with the apparatus, appreciable with a very finish, reasonable smooth with the uniform surface finish is not required with no abrupt change with the weld thickness of the permitted with the weld. The perceived the operator must be qualified in accordance with CGA panel with the C3. All seams of the sphere for the cylinders must be fusion weld with the seams may be butt with the juggle with the butt type of the all for the provide with the accomplishing of the completed penetration point of the joint welding attachments with the container that authorized with the fusing weld that provide with such attachments are provided with the weldable steel carbon contact those not exceed a quarter percent of the except for the case of the 40-130 steel wall thickness. Minimum wall thickness must be checked for the wall stretch for the minimum specified the test for the pressure not exceeding 67% of the minimum tensile strength with the steel with the determined physical pressure test required, but they may not be over 70,000 pounds. The diameter container, the minimum wall thickness of 40,000 for the inch for the calculation must be made with the formulas F1 and F2 with the section. Calculation of sphere must be made with the following: S equals PD divided by 4TE. Calculation of the cylinders must be made with the following, and then it gives you that formula. Heat treatment complete with the containers uniformly properly with the heat is prior to the test. Heat treatment of the containers authorized. Analysis must be the foul with all containers may quench by oil with other suitable means with exemption per paragraph and provided with the paragraph G4 of the section. Steel temperature quenchable must be recommended, but the steel analysis may not exceed 1,750 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature steels that would must be tempered with the temperature must suitable with the analysis except with no case show the temperature can be less than 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Steel must be normalized temperature of 1,650 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the being quenched and contained with normalized needing to be temperature. All cylinders must be quenched in liquid produced in cooling rate exceed the 80% of the cooling rate with the water to inspect for the magnetic particle of the dye penetrated method to detect the pressure of quenching cracks. Any cylinder found with the head of the quenching track must be rejected and may not be requalified. Opening with the container must comply with the following requirements. For opening with the container must provide with the fitting of the bottom of the padded weld of steel securely attached with the container by fusing welding attachments. Fitting of the bottom of the speed adequate to prevent leakage. Threads must comply with the following. Threads must be clean cut and even without check the tapered gauge. Tapered thread have to be length of not less than specified with American standard tapered piper threads. The straight threads may having at least 4 engaged threads have the tight fit with a calculated shear strength with at least 10 per time for the test pressure of the container gasket required adequate preventing leakage. Hydrostatic test of each of the cylinders must successfully withstand the hydrostatic test. This must be by water jacket other suitable method operated over the obtaining accurate data with the pressure gauge. The money must be permitted reading the accuracy of 1% of the expansion gauge must permit the reading of the total expansion accuracy with either 1% or 10th of the cubic centimeter pressure must be maintained for at least 30 seconds with sufficiently longer to ensure the complete expansion of the internal pressure applied after the heat treatment previously with the offer visual test may not exceed the 80-90% of the test pressure. If due with the test operative, the test pressure cannot be maintained. The test must be repeated. The pressure increased by 10% of the 100 psi gauge, which are the lower permanent volumetric expansion for the may not exceed 10% of the total volumetric expansion for the test pressure. Each container must be tested at least 2 times the surface of the test pressure per spread. Type of the O1 container and taken in with a random of 200 or less must be hydrostatically tested. The destruction rupture pressure must be included with the part with the inspector report. Flattening test for spheres and cylinders must be subject with the flattening test as follows. Flattening test and fear of the one test spheres taken the random out of each of the 200 or less of them must be subject to the flattening test. All of the tests must be performed after the hydrostatic test of the test must be welded between the parallel steel plate on the pressure of the welded seam the right angle to the plate with any projection appurtenances may cut off and by mechanical means only with the prior to the crushing. The flattening test for the cylinder 1 and cylinder test take with a random out of each of 200 or less must be subject to the flattening test is followed. The test must be performed after the hydrostatic test. The test cylinder must be placed with between welded shaped knife and each of the having 60 angle. The 60-degree angle with around the half-inch radius. Radiographic inspection. Radiographic examination required by all the welded joints subject to the internal pressure extended by the distribution with the distance stretched of the inspector opening for the left side of the 25% of the sphere of the diameter may not see the subject with the radiographic inspection. Evidence of any of the defects likely to seriously weaken the container must be covered with a rejection. Physical test and specimen with the sphere and cylinders must be subject to the physical test as follows. Physical test and sphere with the required with the two specimen cut from the flat representing the sample of the plate with over the same heat with the taken at random from the steel you've produced the sphere. This flat sphere with the from which the two specimens are cut with the receipt with the same heat treatment as the sphere. The temperature themselves of the same plate to be taken with each allowed with the 200 or less. Specimen spheres have the gauge length with a 2 inch for the width and not over 1.5 inches for the gauge length with at least 24 times the thickness of the width if it's not over 6 inches, 6 times the authorized wall sphere and it's not over 3/16 of an inch thick. The physical testing cylinders required with the two specimen cut with the one cylinder is taken the random out of each of the 200 or less. The specimen cylinder must be conformed with the following: the gauge length with the 8 inch with not over the 1.5 inch for the gauge length with the 2 inch for the width not over the 1.5 inch for the gauge length with at least 24 times the thickness of the width not over the 6 times thickness of the authorized well cylinders with not over 3/16 of an inch. Specimen with exclusive grip may not be flattened with the grip end, but may be flattened with the witch rim with the end of the reduction section with the heat of the specimen for the aim of the purpose. Authorized yield strength with the tension must be stripped with the corresponding permanent strip with the 2/10% with the gauge length with the following conditions. Apply the yield strength with the being determined by either offset with the extension underload with the method is prescribed ASME E8. And using extension underload under the method of the strain with the extension underload with the corresponding strip of the which for the 2/10% permanent with the strain occur with to be determined within sufficient accuracy. The calculation elastic extension of the gauge length with the under the appropriate load for the gauge length elastic extension calculation must be used some of the elastic modules of 3 to million. In the event of the controversy, entire strain with the diagram must be applied with the yield of the strain determined 2/10%. The purpose of the strain measurement of the initial strain with the most be set with the specimen of the with the stress of 1200 psi strain indicator reading being calculated and corresponding crosshead space of the testing of the machine may not exceed 1/8 of an inch per minute during the yield of strength determination. Acceptable result: physical flattening and a burst half of the flying are acceptable result of physical flattening and a burst half of the elongation must be taken at least 20% of the 2-inch gauge length with 10% of the other cases. Flattening is required at 50% of the original outside diameter without cracking. The burst pressure may be at least 5 times surface pressure. Rejected containers. Reheat treatment of rejected cylinders authorized. Subsequent 32 of the containers must be all prescribed test for the acceptable repair welded seam with the welded part of reheat and treatment authorized. Markings on each of the container must be stamped plainly with a permanent attachment over the metal nameplate with a permanently secured onto the container by means other than soft solder. 178-59 specification of 8 steel cylinders, porous fitting is a settling type of surface of the 8 cylinder seamless cylinder with and surface pressure with a 250 psi gauge funnel steel authorized. Longitudinal seam with the forward flap with the weld attached to the head of the weld of the brave, the dipping top of the weld, the ends circumferential body with the seam with the cylinder have down longitudinal steam. Steel open heart with electrical basic oxygen process steel uniform quality may be used with the 10% of the next with the following carbon 1 quarter or 0.25 phosphorus 0.45 thousandths sulfur 50 thousandths. Identification of the steel material that must be identified any suitable knife except for the plate of the bill of the hot drum cylinders must be marked with a heat number. The manufacturer cylinders must be in the manufacturer using an equipment process adequate to ensure that each of the cylinder produced with the conform with the quantity of the subpart no effects the self of the leak likely to weaken with the finished cylinder appreciable reasonable smooth and uniform surface of the finish with the required with the weld the sheet of the operator must be qualified in accordance with the TGA panel of the C3. Exposed bottom weld with exposed bottom of the weld cylinders over the 18 of the protected foot rings, heat treatment of the body with the head with the form of the drum with the process being with the uniformly properly heated treat with the power to test opening with the some of the must comply with the following standard tapered pipe threads are required. Length may not be left within the specimen of the American standard pipe with the temperature of the gauge of the clean cup even without checks. The hydrostatic test each cylinder must successfully withstand the hydrostatic as well. The test must be made by the water declarer with the method operators over the obtain the accurate depth of the pressure gauge with the must permit with the reading accessory accuracy of 1% expansion of the must permit the reading of the total expansion and the accuracy of the 1% of the 1/10 of the cubic centimeter of the pressure must be maintained with the least very sick with the position longer to easy intricately expansion of the internal pressure applied for the heat treatment of the previous official with the test must not exceed 90% of the test pressure. Permanent volumetric expansion may not exceed 10% of the total volumetric expansion of the test pressure. One cylinder over the outage lot of the 200 left the hydrostatic test with at least almost 750 psi cylinder not some of the tests is examined under the pressure between 500 and 600 psi gauge should not be shown no effect. Hydrostatic testing as in cylinder failure. Each of the cylinder lot with it may be hydrostatically tested and thereby passing acceptable leakage test. Cylinder with the bottom closed with the spilling must be the subject with the leakage test by setting the interior air with the gas pressure to the not with the pressure of the cylinder will the leak may be rejected. Physical test the physical testament of the conduit follows. The test required with the two specimen the cut longitudinal with the one cylinder with the apart with the air be taken the random out of each cylinder 200 left each for the heat treatment. Specimen must conform with the gauge length with the 8 inch of the width of the not over 1.5 inches, the gauge length of 2 inches with the width not over the 1.5 inch of the gauge length with at least 24th the same time the thickness of the width of the not over 6 times the thickness of the authorized of the cylinder and will not over 3/16 of an inch thick. Yield strength of the contention with the must be stress corresponding with the permanent strength of the 2/10% with the gauge length of the following conditions apply the yield tank strength must be determined either the offset with the method extension under lobe of the method is provided in ASTM E8 and using the extension under the lobe method with the total strength corresponding to the strength of 2/10% with the train the curve with the determined with the surface accuracy with the calculated with the elastic extension gauge length under the appropriate lobe of the adding of the 2/10% with the gauge length with the all elastic extension calculation must be based on the elastic module 3D million. In the event of the controversy, the entire stress strain of the diagram must be plotted with the yield strength determined at 2/10 of the offset. For the purposes of strain measurement, the initial strain must be set with the specimen arm with the stress of the 1200 psi strain indicator reading being set on the calculated corresponding strain. The core has speed of the testing machine not exceeding 1/8 of an inch per minute during yielded strength yielded strength determination. Yielded strength may not exceed 30% of the tensile strength. Elongation must be at least 40% of the 2 inch with the 20% in the other cases. Rejected cylinders reheated treatment with the rejected cylinder authorized subsequent layer 2 of the cylinders must pass with all prescribed tests acceptable to repair with the welding is authorized. Porous filling cylinders must be filled with the porous material according to the following. The porous material may not be discrete with the sag of the when wet and the solvent when the subject with the normal surface. The porous filling the material must be uniformly quality free of the woods except with the well drilled into the filling of the material between the valve of the authorized well filled with the material for the type of the function with the filling of the material not impaired overall shrinkage of the filling of the material with the authorized tool with the clean with between the cylinder shell filling material after solvent has been added not exceeding 1/2 of the 1% of the respective diameter length with the not exceeding 1/8 of an inch measure for the diametrically longitudinal the clearance may not be impaired with the function of the filling of material instead of the filling of the material that must meet with the requirements of CGA C 12. Porous filling of the filling material may not exceed 80% of the extent with the filling material of the possibility of porosity up to 92% of the may be with the test and satisfactory result of the corn for the CGA third panel of the C12. Porosity of each of the cylinder not known with the cylinder take up the random with the least 200 or less must be tested. The porosity with the test cylinder with the fail with either of the cylinder lap may be tested individually. Those of the cylinder path of the test are acceptable. The filling of the molded with the dried before insertion. Inserting the cylinder with the portion porosity test may be made with the sample of the block taken the random from the material to be used. The porosity of the filling material must determine the amount with the solvent of 70 degrees Fahrenheit with the cylinder that having show the volumetric capacity of the 20 pound with the water capacity nominal may not exceed 50 on the following. And then show for the person of the polar porosity with the filler, the maximum acetylene, acetone, solvent permanent shell capacity with the volume. Having a volumetric capacity of the 20 pounds or less of water capacity than not exceed the following the percent of the porosity of the maximum acetone percent show the volume. Tear weight if it combined with the weight of the cylinder of the porous fitting of the valve with the cylinder solve with the remove the cap of the duties for the inspection addition from the requirement to 178.35 the inspector is required to clarify the chemical analysis skill with the sign with the manufacturer thereof the verified level of the check analysis sample taken in each of the heat from one out of the a lot of 200 or less of the plate show with the tubes. Very compliant with the cylinder should also show the requirements to inspect the inside of the before closing both ends. Very heat treatment is proper. Obtain also samples of all tests for a check for the analysis when it's over the test to verify the threads of the gauge. Report the volumetric capacity to make the thickness of the wall noted. Per report, manufacturing seal show with the form prescribed the 178.35 of the furniture, 1 copy of the manufacturer, 3 copies of the company with the complete cylinders. Determine the porosity film of the tear of the weight of the area compliant with the marking prescribed. Marking with the prescribed requirement of other necessary copies with the seal of the shelf of the report furnishing complete with the report square with the specification of the person with the complete with the manufacturer with the zone with the palm of the request for the purchase. The test report with the must be retained with the inspector 15 year with the original test of the day. The cylinder marking on the each of the cylinder may have the same filling with the person permanently on the near the shoulder for the top of the head, neck of the valve protection collar and permanently attached to the Cylinder with a forming integral layer over the tearaway of the cylinder in the pound by the ounce of it must be marked with a cylinder. Cylinder not complete with a delivery must each be marked with identification of at least lot with 200 or less. 178.60 specification 8AL steel cylinder with a porous filling with acetylene. The type of surface pressure 8AL cylinder seamless steel with a cylinder with a surface pressure with a 250 psi gauge. However, the attachment head with the welding, the braking, the dipping, the process of welding, central body seam is authorized. Longitudinal seams are not authorized. Authorized seal, but the authorized seal is specified in the table 1 appendix A. That's part of the identification seal. Material that must be identified any suitable method except for the plate of the billets and hot drum cylinders must be marked with heat number to manufacture. Cylinders must be manufactured using the process adequately to ensure each of the cylinders produced the conform to the requirements of the subpart. Notice the permit with likely with weakened finish the cylinder appreciably with a reasonable smooth uniformly uniform surface finishes required welding. Perceived the operator must be called in accordance with the CGA ambulance C3 footings. Foot rings with exposed at the bottom with weld cylinders over the 18 inches long with the must be protected with the foot rings, welding braids for the purpose of whatever the prohibited except the follows. Attachment with the top of the bottom cylinder with the net ring with the foot ring with the hand with the boss of the pad with the valve with the protecting ring with the officer of the provider. The trusted attachment portion with the container which for the attachment made with the weldable steel with the carbon content which may be not exceeding 0.25%. Heat treatment is not required for the after welding, brazing weld with the low with the carbon parts of the attachment specified in the paragraph F1 with the section of the similar material to have with the previously weld with the braid with the top of the bottom of the cylinder with the preoperatively heated treat to provide with the subsequent weld with the braid if it does not produce with the temperature not exceeding except for 400 degrees Fahrenheit with the part of the top of the bottom material. Wall thickness with the wall strength of the wall thickness of the wall strength over the cylinder must conform the following calculated wall strength of the 750 psi not exceeding 35,000 psi, one half of the minimum ultimate strength of the test determined in paragraph 1 L of the section whichever the value is small of the marked wall thickness that may not exceed with the galvanizing other the calculation of the wall stress must maybe the in the following formula either D or D must be calculated with the relation of D equals D plus 2 times T, where T is equal to the minimum wall thickness cylinders with the wall thickness less than 100,000th of an inch. Ratio of the strength side wall the length of the outside of the diameter 3.5. For cylinder with the outside of the diameter over 5 inches of the minimum wall thickness is 87,000 inch. Heat treatment cylinder must be uniformly properly with the heated treatment with the prior testing suitable with the method excess of 1100 degrees. Heat treatment that must be accomplished after performing the operation with except for the raised joints. Or using the heat treatment must follow with any of the forming the welding operation, but may be done before after the brazing operation. Liquid quenching is not authorized. Opening standard tape or pipe with the threads require that in all openings with the length of the opening may not be left within the specified with American standard pipe threads. The tape of the gauge and clean cut, but even without checks. Hydrostatic test of each of the cylinder must successfully withstand the hydrostatic test as follows. Test must be the water jacket or suitable method operated with the shoulder to obtain the accurate depth of the pressure gauge must be permanent. Reading the accuracy of the 1% of the expansion must be permanent. The reading of the total expansion with the accuracy of the 1% of the 1/10 of the cubic centimeter. Pressure may must be attained at least 30 seconds sufficiently longer to ensure the complete with the expansion internal pressure applied with the heat treatment of the previous laid to the offset of the initial test with the not exceeding 90% of the test pressure. Permanent volumetric expansion may exceed 10% of the total volumetric expansion of the test pressure. One cylinder out of each out with 200 or less. My hydrostatic test at least 750 psi gauge. Cylinder not so tested must be examined under the pressure of the 500 to 600 psi gauge with no defect. With the hydrostatic test cylinder fails, each cylinder and the lot must be hydrostatically tested with passing are acceptable. With the leakage test of the cylinder with the bottom pillow for the spring with the must be moved. The leakage test in the setting with the interior of the air with the gas pressure not less than the surface pressure. Any cylinder leak for the must be rejected. Physical test of the must be with the conductors fouls. Test required at least 2 specimens in the cut with the longitudinal from one cylinder. They are taken and random out with the lot with the 200 or less after the treatment. Must conform to the span the gauge length with the 8 inch of blade with not over 1.5 inch for the gauge length with the 2 inch of blade not over the 1.5 inch for the gauge length with at least 24 times with the thickness of width not over 6 times thickness and authorized for the cylinder will not over the 3/16 of the inch for the yield strength with the tension for the must be strength with the corresponding with the permanent strength with the 2/10% with the gauge length with the following conditions apply. Yield strength must be determined by either the offset method of the extension or under load must be as prescribed in ASME E8 and using the extension over the load method with the total strain with the corresponding with the strength which for the 2/10% with the permanent strain with the curve with the determined with the sufficient accuracy with the calculation elastic extension of the gauge length with the under appropriate getting thereto to 2/10% with the gauge length with the elastic extension the calculation must be made with the elastic module of 380 million. In the event of the controversy the entire stress strain with the diagram must be applied with the yield strength with the determined 2/10 of the offset. For purpose of the strain measurement with the initial strain with the must be set with the specimen that you under the strength of the 1200 psi strain indicator reading of the 7 as calculated a corresponding strain. Core head course head speed with a testing machine not exceeding 1/8 of an inch per minute during yield strength determination. Elongation physical testing specimen that must show with at least 40% of the elongation, 2-inch gauge length with at least 20% of the elongation, and in other cases except for those elongation percent that may be numerically 2 to 2 inches specimen in the one other case with at least 7,500 psi increment. The test will strength above 50% psi is the maximum for such an increment. The well testing specimen on the cuff of the circumferential well of the seam must be coupled with one cylinder with the half of random each for the lab with 200 less cylinder after the heat treatment that must be passed satisfactory fouling test. Tensile test of the specimen must be coupled with one cylinder for each of the lab with a 200 left well. The test plate with the specimen must be taken with the cuff of the major seam that must be prepared with the test according to the add and must be meet with the specific requirements of CGA panel of C30. C30 should be the specimen fail to meet the requirements of the specimen may be taken with 2 additional cylinders with the well test plate with the same lab with the test either with a later specimen fail to meet the requirements. The entire lot represented with the rejected guide bend except for the root bend specimen that must be coupled with the cylinder with the well the test plate with the youth or the test tensile straight specimen and pick up the end one section specimen that must be prepared with the test in accordance with and must meet with the requirements of CGA panel of C3 with the alternative guide bend test must be U that must be required with the CGA panel of C3. The specimen must be bent until the elongation hour strip of the J from the root of the well between the lay of the scribe gate the lines A to B with the must be to at least 20% of the except for the percentage may be reduced to seal having tensile strength with an excess of 50,000 psi provided with the M of the section rejected cylinders reheat cylinder rejected system cylinder is authorized. Subsequently thereto, the cylinder must also prescribe with the acceptable repair welding and authorized porous filling. Cylinders must be filled with the porous material according to the following porous material may not disintegrate sag when welding solvent with the subject with the normal surface. Filling material must be uniform quality free of the voids except with the well drill the filling with the material band with the knee valve with the authorized with the well is filled with the material with the subtype of the functions filling material not impaired over shrinkage if the filling of the material is off the total clearance between the cylinder shell with the filling material solvent has been added not exceed the 1/2 to 1% of the respective diameter of the length of the not exceeding 1/8 of an inch measuring diametrically longitudinally. The clearance of the may not impair with the function of the filling material. The installed filling material that must meet with the requirements CGA C12 with the power C filling material that may not exceed 8% except for the filling material with the porosity of 92% may be used with the test and with satisfactory result according to the CGA panel of C12 of the porosity each of the cylinders known as the cylinder taken with a random at least 200 or less more to be proud test the porosity of the testing cylinder failed with each of the cylinder lot may be tested individually though the cylinder that passed the test acceptable with the filling and mold with the dry with the insertion cylinder with the porosity of the test may be made with the sample of the lock taking the random of the material that is to be used. Porosity filling materials must be determined the amount of the salt with the 670 degrees Fahrenheit cylinder. First shell of all metric capacity above 20% of water capacity nominal may not exceed the following, and then show the porosity with the filler maximum acetone solvent per shell with the capacity by volume having volumetric capacity of 20 pounds or less, water capacity not exceeding the following percent of porosity of the filler maximum acetone solvent per shell with the capacity by volume, the tear weight of the combined weight of the with the porosity and proper porous filling with the valve with the solvent without removal of the cap of the duty inspector addition with the requirements of 178.35 of the inspection shell. Certified chemical analysis steel used and signed with the manufacturer thereof that verify with the chemical analysis sample to take with each of the from one of the 200 or less proper plates and show the tube with the verify with the compliant with the cylinder shell with the shell requirements to inspect with the inside with the before closing in both ends. Verify the heat treatment is properly obtained with the L sample with the tap of the check with the analysis witness show with the tap to verify the threads with the gauge report the volumetric capacity the minimum thickness of the wall noted. They report the percent of the 1/8 of the capacity of the alloyed element of the steel. Prepare with the report of the manufacturer's steel with the shell with the prescribed 178.35 with the furnish with a copy of one manufacturer, 3 copies of the company 2 that is complete cylinders. Determine the porosity of the filling, the tear weight, to verify the compliance make with the prescribed requirements of the same, and the necessary copy of the steel shell with the reports prescribed, and pick up the section of the furnish complete tap with the test required with the specification of the person with the complete with the manufacturer of the cylinder and upon with the request of the manufacturer. Test reports must be retained with the inspector with the 15 years of the original test date with the cylinder marking the tear with the cylinder and pounds and ounces must be marked on one cylinder. The cylinder is not completed when delivered must be each marked by identification mark at least 200 pounds, 200 or less. The marking must be stamped plain with a permanent location according to the following: one shoulder, the top head is not less than 87% of the thickness on the neck valve with the valve protection sleeve with the cylinder part with the permanently attached with the top end. The cylinder on the plate with the ferrous metal with attached with the top of the cylinder with the permanent part with the air of the plate with at least 1/8, 1/16 of the inch of the must be attached with the welding braid with a temperature less than 1100 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the all edges of the plate with the position of space with the left behind of the plate provide the stamping less at least 4 retest dates. 178.61 specification A W 4BW welded steel cylinders with electric arc welding longitudinal Type of the size, the serve of the pressure for the dot 4BW cylinders, well the type of the seals over the longitudinal electrical arc, well the steam water capacity not over 1,000 pounds, but the serve of the pressure at least 225, but not over 500 psi gauge. The cylinder cover the spinning prop of the authorized steel the U with the construction of the cylinder must conform with the following the body with the cylinder must be with the construction of conformity to the alignments. So it's found in table 1 and appendix A with the material for heading with the must be. The requirements of paragraph B1 over the section from the be open hearth electrical base action with the carbon steel over the uniform quality carbon content with the percent of the exceed with the following: carbon is 0.25, the magnesium is 0.60, phosphorus is 0.045. Sulfur is 0.050. Head to the hemispherical ellipsoid shape with the maximum of the ratio of the 2 to 1 with the low carbon and steel with the U with the thickness of the such head that must be determined by U with the minimum wall thickness is 24,000 P with the informational described in paragraph F4 with the section. Identification of the material must identify the suitable. The manufacturer cylinder must be the manufacturer with the equipment procedure that adequate to ensure that each of the cylinder produced the conform with the requirements of the subpart of the following. Notice effects is permanent that likely to weaken the finished cylinder with appreciable reasonable smooth the uniform surface is required. Expose the bottom welds of the cylinder over the 18 inches long and long must be protected with a foot ring with the minimum thickness of the head that may not be less than 90% of the required thickness of the sidewall head must be communicated. The pressure of the circumferential seam must be with electrical arc welding joints must be butt with one member offset with a juggle butt with the lap with the minimum overlap at least 4 times the nominal sheet thickness. Longitudinal seams and shovel must be the conform of the following. The longitudinal electrical arc welds must be with the butt weld. The type of the welds must be made with the machine process, including automatic feed with the weld. The guy inspected of the longitudinal seams must have the complete with the joint penetration must have 3. The undercuts, overlaps, or butt bridges, bellies, misalignment, true of the butt edges may not exceed 1/6 of the nominal sheet with the thickness or 1/32 with the thickness, whichever to left all the joints include the butt 1/8 of an inch must be tightly butted with the nominal steel thickness for the greater with the 1/8 of an inch joint must be gapped and with a maximum distance equal to the 1/2 of the nominal sheet. The sheet thickness 1/32 of the inch for the inch, whichever to left the joint design preparation fit up must be such that the requirements paragraph D is satisfied. Maximum joint efficiency of the 1.0 with each seam with the radiographically complete with the maximum joint efficiency may not be 0.90. One cylinder from each lap with the 50 consecutively welded cylinders is spot radiographically in addition with one of the first 5 cylinders with the welding following shutdown of the welding operation conceived with the 4 hours must be spot radiograph. The spot radiographs when required must meet the finished welding cylinder must include the girth weld over the 2 inches both the direction of the intersection longitudinal girth weld, including at least 6 inch longitude welds. Maximum joint proficiency with a 0.75 must be permissible without radiographic welding. Procedure operators must qualify in accordance with the CGA panel with the C3 with welding attachments and with the attachments top bottom only with the cylinder welding neck ring with the foot rings hand boss of the bottom pads valve protection ring with the authorized provided with the set of the attachment protection portion container of which of the attachments are made with weldable steel with the carbon content over which made with the not exceeding 0.25% wall thickness outside diameter over the 6 inches minimum wall thickness must be 78,000 of the inch cylinder with the wall thickness less than 100,000 of an inch ratio of the tangential length of the outside diameter not exceeding the 4 to 1. In any case with the minimum wall thickness must be set for the wall strips calculated with the 4 milliliters in paragraph F4 with the section 9, even the lesser value of the angle of the following valve view. Reference paragraph B with the section particular with the material under the consideration 1/2 of the minimum tensile strength of the material determined and required. Paragraph J of the section 35,000 psi stress must be calculated by the following formula, and then the heat treatment each of the cylinder must be uniformly properly heated with the fire traffic test applicable to the method of reference for the table of 1 with the depending of the part with the heat treatment that must be accomplished to all forming the welding operation. Heat treatment is not required with after welding, brazing welding, low carbon parts with attachment similar material with it have them previously welded the top of the bottom of the cylinder with the property with the heat treatment provided with the subsequent weld the brave does not produce the temperature excess of 400 degrees Fahrenheit and any part of the top of the bottom material open cylinder opening with the cylinder must form with the following. All openings must be in the head of the bay for the opening for the cylinder must be provided with the adequate fitting with the boss of the integral with the width and the securely attached cylinder by welding threading must give the following with the threads must clean out with the gauge. Taper thread must be length whether not less than specified with the American standard taper pipe threads. The straight threads have at least 4 engaged threads with the calculated shear with string with at least 10 time with the gas tension pressure for the cylinder with the gasket required adequate preventing leak with the cut. Which fittings above for the pads must be adequate to prevent leak pressure for the hydrostatic cylinders must be withstanding with the hydrostatics of the with the test must be water jacket or suitable measure operated so they obtain the accurate data of the pressure gauge that must be permitted the readings accuracy of the 1% of the expansion gave the must permit the reading of the total volumetric expansion from the accuracy of either 1% of the 10th of the cubic centimeter. The pressure must be maintained with at least 30% as 30 seconds is additionally lowered to ensure the complete with expansion internal pressure of the applied for the heat treatment. The previously visual test may not exceed 9% of the test pressure. Permanent volumetric expansion may not exceed 10% of the total volumetric expansion from the test cylinder. Test pressure cylinder must be tested found at least one cylinder with select with a random each allowed with a 200 must be tested outline for paragraph I1, I2, I3 of the section at least 2 times. The pressure all cylinders not tested in outline. Paragraph I4, 1 of the section must be examined under the pressure at least 2 times. Over the pressure with no defect. The other prevention shows selected random out of each lap 500 or less successfully produced must be the hydrostatic tested 4 times. The surface of the pressure without bursting. Physical test. The cylinder must be subjected. Physical test to follow specimens must be taken with the one cylinder after heat treatment of the shows of the random each lap with 200 or less. The body specimen, one specimen must be taken longitudinal from the body of the section at least 90 degrees away from the well of the heat specimen. The one specimen must be taken with either head over the cylinder with both heads over the bottom of the same material. However, the 2 heads with the made with differing material. Specimen must be taken from each for the head of the dew of the well, the attachment top of the head, the insufficient surface of which for the take of the specimen may be taken with the represent with the heat of the image treatment as test cylinder specimen must conform to the following: a gauge length with 8 inches of the width, not over 1/2 inch of the gauge length with a 2 inch of width, not over 1/2 inch of the gauge length with the width, length not 24 times the thickness of the width, not over 6 times the thickness of the authorized cylinder wall, not over 3/16 of the inches thick of the specimen. Smooth of the grip of the ends of the may be not flattened. The grip ends may be flattened with 1 inch of the end, but the side of the one side of the cylinder does not permit the straight specimen. The specimen may be taken in any location, direction, may be straight and flat, cooled, air and pressure only with a not blow within the specimen are taken and prepared with the increments of the report, but must be shown with a connection with the record. Physical test with the detailed information regarding such specimen. Heating of the specimen for any of the purpose is not authorized. Yield strength with tension must be strength stress corresponding with the permanent strain with the 2/10 of the percent with the gauge the length of the following conditions apply. Yield strength must be determined by either the offset method with the extension under load method prescribed in ASTM E8, and either the extension over the load method is the whole strain over the corresponding to the surface within 2/10 of the percent with the strain the curve will be determined with the sufficient accuracy with the calculation elastic extension of the gauge length with under the appropriate load with the ending of the 2/10 of the percent with the gauge length with the elastic extension calculation must be with the elastic modulus 3 million. In the event of the controversy and terror and stress strain with the diagram must be applied with the yield strength with determined at 2/10 of the percent offset. For the purpose of the strain with the measure for the initial strain with the reference must be set with the specimen under stress of the 1200 psi with the strain indicator reading to be used out of the calculated corresponding strain with the crosshead speed with the testing machine. They now exceed 1/8 of an inch per minute during the yield strength determination. Elongation. Physical test specimen now show with at least 40% of the elongation, 2 inches for the gauge length with at least 20% of the elongation in the other. Okay, for the except of the elongation percent with it may be reduced numerically by 2 by 2 inches for the one and the other for 75 psi with the incremental test strength with a 50,000 psi with the maximum 4 increment. The test of the wells must be subject to the following: a test specimen. The specimen must be from one cylinder with each will allow with the 2 or less specimen must be taken with a couple longitudinal seam. Must be prepared and tested in accordance with it and must meet with the requirements of the CGA pen with the C3 guide. And test root test specimen must be cut with the cylinder with the tensile stress. The specimen in the paragraph 1 L1 of the section specimen must be taken with the crowd with the longitudinal seam. Must be prepared with the test in accordance with the ministry of the requirements of the CGA pen with C3. Alternative guide band with the test may be used with the requirements of CGA pen with the C3 with the special must be done with the use of the elongation hour superly adjacent to the root of the well between the lightly with the described gauge lines or the AB with the at least 20% and except for the percentage may reduce the seals have the tensile strength of the sets of 50,000 psi are provided with a K with this section. Radiographic examinations. Well, the cylinders must be subject to the radiographic examination. Follow the radiographic inspection conform with the technique for the acceptable criteria set forth in CG pan with the C3 fluoroscopic inspection. You with the permanent film record but not retained. Should spot radiographic examination fail to meet the requirements of paragraph M1 of the section 2 additional with the same lab with the 50 cylinder left must be examined with either, but the fail to meet with the requirements of each cylinder must be examined the previously outlined with those advancing with the acceptable. Rejected cylinders. Unless otherwise stated with the sample of the cylinder, the specimen, the take of the lab, the cylinder fail with the prescribed, the 2 additional specimens must be selected with the same lab with the subject with the prescribed test. Either of these fail with the test for the entire lot must be rejected. Reheat treatment, the rejected cylinder with the authorized subsequent thereto, but the cylinder must be prescribed with the test and acceptable to repair the well with the seam. The welding is authorized provided the old effective metal with the cutaway. Joint re-welded as prescribed in the original weld. The joints marking the marking must be steamed plainly permanently in any of the following locations of the cylinder. One shot shoulder the top of the head with they are not less than the 80,000 inch thick. A metal plate attached to the top of the cylinder, permanent mark with the arrow of the position space with the left hand with the plate with the provided with the same with at least 6 retest date for the plate must be at least 1/16 of the inch thick must be attached by welding or bracing. The bracing rod is met with a temperature of 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. Welding brace must be along with the edge of the plate. The neck of the valve with the valve protection sleeve with a similar permanent attached to the top of the cylinder, and the footing ring permanently attached to the cylinder provided with the water capacity of the cylinder does 19.5 pounds. Our inspector's report, in addition with the information required with the 17835 of the inspection report made the type of the mount radiograph. Agree. All right, 178, 65, specification 39, non-reusable, non-refillable cylinder. Type over the pressure for the testing. 39 some with a seamless well with a raised cylinder without some of the pressure 19 the 80% of the test pressure for the electrical phase pressure vessel with the outer half of the core will cover the reference for the cylinder the specification side of the limit for the minimum water capacity with the not exceeding 55 pound with the strip of the pressure for the 500 psi gauge or left the 10 pound with the strip of the pressure for the 500 psi gauge test pressure for the minimum test pressure maximum pressure for the concept of the 130 degrees, 180 degrees psi gauge with the grade with the pressure of the content of the possession for the content with the specification mean with the total pressure all material to be in the cylinder. Material of steel, aluminum of the cylinder must be struck with the E of the steel, aluminum with the conformity of the following requirements. Steel with the steel analysis must conform to the following: carbon maximum percent of the phosphorus, maximum percent of the sulfur, maximum percentage. For cylinder made with a seamless steel tubing integral to form with a hot drum finish contact with the following with a not exceeding carbon of 0.55, phosphorus 0.045, sulfur 0.050. For non-heat treated well with a steel cylinder with adequate kill deep the drawing quality and seal is required. Longitudinal helical well with the cylinders not authorized. The serve of the pressure of the exceeds XF at the 500 psi gauge. Aluminum is not authorized. Serve of the pressure of the XF at the 500 psi gauge. And amplified of aluminum must conform to the aluminum association same with the alloy. 1060, 1100, 1170, with the 8003, with the 550, 52, with the 50, 86, 51, 54, 60, 61, 60, 63, specified with the publication and aluminum standard within data. Material with a seamless crack. Laminations and other injuries, defects not permitted. The material must be within identified and suitable material. General manufacturer requirements as follows. Surface finish with it must be uniformly reasonable, smooth inside. Surface must be clean. The joint free of the loose particle with no defect with any of the kind permanent, likely to weaken the finish cylinder. Requirements for the seam with the brazing not authorized aluminum cylinders. Brazing material must have the melting point but not lower than 100,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And brazing seam must be assembled the proper fitting ensure the complete plan tray for the brazing material throughout the brazed joints. Maximum length of the brazed joint with at least 4 times the thickness of the shell wall. Brazed sheet must have the design strength equal to greater than 1.5 times the minimum strength of the shell wall. The seams must be properly aligned with the well of the metal. Provides clean and uniform joint with the adequate prevention. Well, the joints must have the strength equal to greater than minimum strength of the shell material with the definition. Some of the attachment with the cylinder that are permitted with the mean with which will not detrimental integrity with the cylinder with the welding braid with attachment. Cylinder must be completed prior to all pressure tests. Welding procedure the operative must be welded in accordance with the FCG, the for the C3 with the wall thickness, the minimum wall thickness, the for the wall with the test rusher design, C with the yield strength with the material with the finish cylinder wall. Calculation must be valid in following formulas. Calculation strength of the cylinder must be made with the following formula. And this over the calculation strength of the reserve that must be made in the following formula. Opening and ends of the attachment. Opening attachment is conform to the following. Opening attachments over the permitted of the heads. Only the opening edge of the reinforcement must be within the imaginary circle of the concentric circle of the axis of the cylinder. The diameter of the circle with an exceeding 8% of the outside of the diameter of the cylinder. With the plane of the cylinder must be parallel to the plane circumferential well with normal of the long axis of the cylinder. Alright, unless the head of the adequate thickness of each of the opening with the reinforced with the surely attached fitting with the bottom of the pad of the collar with a suitable materials with the welding opening with attachment must be weldable compatible with the material with the cylinder pressure test with each of the cylinder must be tested with the internal pressure with the least test rate for the most with the pressure of the least seconds. The leakage test must be with the conductor with the submersion with the water. Some of the methods there will be equally sensitive to the cylinder leak with the evidence of the valve with the distortion. Any other defect with the owner's test may be rejected. This paragraph H of this section. One cylinder has taken from the beginning with each of the lap with the one of the each of the 1,000 less successfully produced with the lot thereafter must be hydrostatically tested. Destruction entire lot must be rejected. See paragraph H of this section. And the failure curve of the gauge pressure relief of the 2 times the test pressure for the failure initiated with the brake for the well with the heat affects the zone of the air over the failure other than the side wall with the cylindrical longitude with the long axis of the sphere of the failure of the curve of the opening of the reinforcement at the point of attachment. The last fine quality of the cylinder successfully produced per production and shape the 10 hours that have the identical side of the design, construction material, the heat treatment, and finishing quality. Flattening test. One cylinder must take at the beginning with the producing each of the lot with the defined in paragraph F3 of the section. So productive the flattening test is followed. The flattening test must be with the cylinder that has been tested. The test pressure ring take with the cylinder must be flattened with the alternative to the test. The complete cylinder with the test ring with the main and include with the heat affected zone with the with the weld that they have left after with the test ring may include with the differential weld located at 45 degrees with the angle of the ring of the plus minus 5 degrees. Flattening must be between 60 degrees included angle of the weld wedge shape of the knife edge with around with a half inch of the radius. Cylinders and the test rings may not the crack of the flattened so that they're outside of the surface that are not more than 6 times the wall thickness of the part with the made with the steel with not more than 10 times the wall thickness of part with the made with aluminum. If any cylinder with a ring crack with the subject with the specified with the flattening tear with the lot cylinder with the repeat representative of the test must be rejected the paragraph the age of the section rejected cylinder. The rejected cylinders must conform to the following requirements and cover the rejection of the lot of the determinable the test of the inspection. Defective cylinders are limited, but the lot of the remaining cylinder must be qualified as a new lot under paragraphs F and G of the section. Alright, repairs to weld and primitive. The following repair cylinders must pass the test pressure of the paragraph of the F section of the cylinder made with a seamless tube flail with the flattening test described in paragraph G. With the second uniform heat treatment must be with each of the cylinder. A lot of the prescribed test must be performed with the subsequent heat to this heat treatment. The bunker for the markings required by the section must be durable, the waterproof with the water requirements of 178.35H do not apply with the following. Section required marking that is filed with the .39 NRC, the surface pressure, the test pressure, the registration mark with the manufacturer lot number, the date of the manufacture of the lot number does not establish for the date of the manufacture of one of the following statements. For some of the manufactured prior to October 1st, 1996, with the federal law forbid with the transportation refill penalty up to $25,000 fine over the 5-year imprisonment. Federal law for bids of transportation refill penalty over the $500,000 fine or 5-year imprisonment. For cylinders manufactured on October 1st, 1996, with the federal law for the transportation is refill penalty up to $500,000 fine, 5 years imprisonment. Marking required in paragraph I-21 and I-25 of this section must be in the numbers or later letters at least 1/8 of an inch high when the display is sequential. For example, the .39 NRC 250 500 M 1001. No person shall make any marking cylinder with the dot specification indication .39 unless it's manufacturer compliance with requirements. The section of the manufacturer has registration number M and then whatever 4 is from the associated administrator. Alright, 178.68 specification E4E of welded aluminum cylinders. I'm going to cut the tape right here at 41 minutes.